Hello, everyone. Very welcome. Today, we will talk about the constellations related to houses, not the planets. Just like each planet is placed in one constellation, similarly, each house is also placed in one constellation. This concept is based on what we call equal house distribution. For example, if my rising is 5 degrees in Aries, it means that the constellation of my ascendant is Ashwini. I will keep this 5 degrees in every house. Ashwini is at 5 degrees, Kritika in Taurus. Keep 5 degrees at 5 degrees. In Taurus, Kritika falls. Remember, Kritika for the second house, 5 degrees, Kritika affects the second house. This means that if I want to know something about the second house, I will keep Kritika in mind. And its ruler is the sun. So in the third house as well, there will be 5 degrees. The constellation that will fall there is Mrigashira. For the fourth house, at 5 degrees. And in the fifth house, the constellation of Ketu, which is Magha, will come again. So in this way, according to this system, every house also has a nakshatra. The quality and significance of a house affect our experience. Let's explore house constellations and their roles. For that, we definitely look at the house lords, and significators. But there's also a concept of how we view this and how it applies to the chart. Let's understand today the role of constellation in houses as well, how they modify their results. How do we turn a negative situation more into positivity? Or do we add more negativity and spoil the situation? There are a few rules we need to know. What do we look at to evaluate any house? First, the house, then the house lord, and finally the significator. Out of these three, if we should give the most importance, it should be to the house lord. What have we received and what is its duty? What is more important is what we are removing. How much effort are we putting into the outfit? To keep that area intact, the work is done by the house lord. So according to me, the house lord is the most important. But the house lord works only on a surface level or a subtle level. To understand the deeper workings of any house, whether it's on a root level or a grass level, we should focus on the constellation lord of that house. This is a kind of microscopic view, which we may not see at the surface level, but by assessing this constellation lord, we can uncover the true value or real essence of that house, which is not easily visible. As I mentioned earlier, this is placed on the equal house system. The way I explained it to you, the degree that is rising in the ascendant, you will place that same degree in every house. The constellation that follows that degree is the constellation of that house, and we need to check its lord. There are a few principles related to this concept that we need to understand. First of all, whatever constellation lord is following in any house, like if Ketu's constellation comes in the ascendant, then I need to look at Ketu's placement. If the sun's constellation comes in the ascendant, like Kritika, then I need to look at the placement of the sun, where the sun is placed. What are their strengths? What is the weakness like? The sun is also the significator of the ascendant. They represent health and vitality. The constellation lord is ruling at the first house. Now their importance, D, will increase even more. After looking at the strength or weakness of the constellation lord, the second thing we need to look at is where their lordship is. If their lordship, for example, the ruler of my first house is determined by the constellation, that's what it becomes. I need to see whether Mars rules the 6th, 8th, and 12th houses. As it is also a natural malefic planet, if my ascendant lord is not a friend and rules the 6th, 8th, and 12th houses, then it will bring certain challenges. Everyone must have heard about natural malefic planets. Even when they are aspecting their own house, they promote the materialistic side of the house. They still diminish the essence of life or real happiness. The rulership of any house has both house rulership and constellation rulership, which can be influenced by malefic planets. Even when well placed, they tend to uplift the materialistic side instead of genuine happiness or the essence of life. The most important point in this concept is that each constellation has some basic traits and nature. It has some mythology, deities, and qualities. It can be fierce, educational, soft, movable, and swift. What is that constellation by itself, and who are its deities? The most important thing to say before this is whether their ruler is the sun or their ruler is Mars. It will determine whether it will be good or bad for the child. All the fierce and sharp constellations like Bharani, Kritika, Ardra, Shravana, Mula, and Purva Bhadrapada, these relationships bring a lot of challenges. It could be the Magha or Kritika or Jeshta. These constellations give power positions, but Venus comes into play, and relationships, nature, they create some kind of issues. The importance, Joe, of this concept will decrease. The importance of any planet placed in a house is the highest today compared to the house lord or constellation lord, especially if that planet is very close to the degree of that house. Its significance will be greater than both of these. If there is no planet placed, then the house lord and constellation lord will become more important. Gemini is in the 7th house at 2 degrees. Mercury and Mars are key due to Venus's position. Venus affects the house, so Mercury and Mars will be important for me because Mercury rules the house and the constellation-wise rulership goes to Mars, since Venus is around the same degree. Venus can either disrupt or enhance that house, depending on the situation. We need to consider Venus's association and what kind of planet it is. With every single time, with every single planet, it works in such a way that if I say that Ketu's constellation is ruling in the ascendant, then Ketu's constellation will also be present in the 5th and 9th houses. In the 2nd house, if Sun constellation is present, Sun's constellation will also be in the 6th and 10th houses. So in this way, a particular planet of yours, one concert trine rules the strength and weakness of that planet. And it also indicates the happiness of that trine. For example, if Mars's constellation is in the 3rd house, it will also be in the 7th. It will also come in the 11th. This Mars is not well placed. Their associations are quite bad, or they are becoming the lords of the 6th, 8th, and 12th houses. If there are bad yogas, then the desires of my life will not be fulfilled. The 2nd trine will rule. She will not be able to compose well. There will be some difficulties in fulfilling desires. As the 2nd trine will rule, if the sun, which rules the constellation, becomes weak, then my financial situation and the triangle of my money will get disrupted. This is a very important role. If there is any sharp or fierce constellation in a house and its house lord and significator are also in fierce or sharp constellations, those we talked about earlier, which Bharani or Kritika is there among these international bodies. If any of these are present, then the quality of the house is impacted. Even if a marriage takes place and these 3 are coming in the 7th, they are impacting in some way because they are other constellations. That's why they will definitely fight over small issues and arguments. Second role is key. According to this, any planet that sits in a particular constellation will invariably impact its trine's constellation. Let's take the first example. I have a 5-degree rising in Aries, so my Ketu's constellation is there, and the sun is placed at 67 degrees. It will be around 5 degrees or anywhere in Ketu's constellation, which can go up to 13 degrees or 13-20 degrees. Now through the trine, the sun is influencing Magha and Mula as well. If there is any planet in that range, in the 5th or 9th house, then their associations and impacts will be significant. Otherwise, its intensity is very high which we also say in astrology that the planets that are in prime positions have a greater impact. That impact will be stronger. If their constellation is the same, let's understand all the rules we've learned using this example chart. First, let's look at the quality of the chart. The ascendant is in the 6th house, but is in a friendly sign. Natural malefic planets can bring the energy of the 6th house. What's happening there is that their 8th lord is with them, who is also their enemy, and with Mercury, they will fulfill their duties alongside the sun, becoming the 6th lord. And Mercury is the ninth lord, which is more of a 6th lord, where A is placed. Now, my ascendant lord is associated with the 8th and 6th lords. So I feel that the quality of the chart is slightly declining. Mars, which is expected to aspect the ascendant, is considered my 11th lord and my 4th lord. It will provide me comfort, convenience, and money. But it is debilitated, sitting in the 7th house and looking at me from there. My moon is debilitated. It is with Rahu, and my moon sign is also weak. Now let's talk about childbirth. If you look at the 5th house, the 5th lord is in the 5th house itself, and Rahu and Ketu are in the axis. My ascendant degree is 15, which means that the degree in my 5th house will also be around 15 to 25. The nakshatra there is Rohini. The lord of Rohini is Moon. Moon is also low in Rahu-Ketu axis. In the axis of Rahu, Yud and Ketu, watery planets are very important for both childbirth and childbearing ability for a lady. So in this case, my house lord, and my constellation, which rule my house, are all three factors. The moon is also a significator of motherhood. If I look at the 5th house from the moon chart, there is an aspect from Saturn, which is considered to cause delays, but it is looking at my 5th house from a balanced sign, and it is also the 3rd lord, which will show efforts. My moon is associated with Jupiter, which is a natural significator. Where is the child aspect? It's in Aquarius, which is the sign of Saturn, but the moon is in the Purva Bhadrapada constellation, which is an intense constellation. I mentioned that any planet or house coming into a particular constellation has its own quality, and this is very, very important because of these influences they have. Never experienced anything like this. Let's talk about one more case. The point I'm trying to make with this principle is that when you are judging the quality of a house, you should definitely check how the constellation falling in that house is positioned and where its ruler is placed, before saying that your work won't go well or that your marriage won't last or whatever you are looking at. In this case, I have a Leo rising and my ascendant lord is in the 3rd house in a debilitated position and is in the Swati constellation. Swati has traits that love, freedom, and independence. They are very business-minded and want to get their work done. The balancing energy of Libra is most prominent in Swati. But if any planet is weak or debilitated in a constellation, it cannot adopt its traits. In fact, they are first because of that. They have a very good support system. Because my ascendant lord is with 2 natural benefic planets, one of which is also their friend. So they have support from their father, financial support, and comfort and convenience in every way. But independence was neither given nor shown. That's why there is a lot of dependency in spite of having all the high talent. Now, I will talk about the 7th house. There is no malefic or benefic influence on my 7th house. The degree I am studying in my 7th grade is 2537. Purva Bhadrapada is an intense nakshatra ruled by Jupiter. The ruler is Jupiter, and Jupiter is more of a lot than the 5th lord. Jupiter is exalted in wealth, but it is in the Rahu Ketu axis in the Ashlesha Nakshatra. My seventh lord has gone into the fifth house and is with the moon. The moon is the 12th lord for this chart. Ignoring seventh house, it's simple. No expectations. Seventh lord in fifth suggests love marriage. Seventh house lacks expectations. Love marriage disrupted by moon. My seventh lord is in the fifth house. Problems may arise if the husband travels frequently because malefic planets influence beneficial planets more. If there are any problems, it could be that the husband travels a lot. Marriage delayed. There are some difficulties in love marriage because the 12th lord is placed there. There is the aspect of Mars and Mars as well. My name is me, and I will try to keep the marriage intact. At least he is my ascendant's friend. Mars could cause some bickering or ego battles or some sudden events in the marriage, but it doesn't seem like there's enough reflection for me to confirm that. The first thing is that the Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra comes into my seventh house. Its lord in Ashlesha Nakshatra and in Rahu Ketu axis. Their first marriage has already broken down, and the second one is almost on the verge of breaking as well. Of course, along with all these principles, what is the quality of the D9? My seventh lord in the D9, where and how it is placed, all those rules need to be considered side by side. But we shouldn't ignore this rule. Let's look at the chart. In this case, Libra is rising at 28 degrees. Rahu is placed at the exact degree. And in the seventh house, where it will be at 28 degrees, Ketu is placed there. I had said that when we find a planet in that nakshatra, or at that exact degree, its importance becomes greater than that of the sign lord, or the nakshatra lord. So, having one goat house in the seventh house, and the second goat house giving its third aspect to my seventh house, feels a bit strange. Even Saturn, with its significations as a yoga karaka, doesn't let go of those delays, it keeps them intact. It could be that the delay is happening for a good reason, and the degree that is in my seventh house is Kritika. The one we discussed earlier is not in a good nakshatra. When it comes to relationships, that's where Ketu is. My seventh lord Mars is also in the Kritika nakshatra, which indicates different kinds of challenges. Despite the eighth house, I will say that it is in the same sign and there isn't much fiction involved. But still, my attention should go there. The sun is in the ninth house with two friendly planets in the same sign, and their rulership isn't too bad. In this regard, I should say that it doesn't seem that bad. But we had discussed more. Whenever a house, its lord, and the significator are all in fierce or intense nakshatras, the quality of that house tends to be poor. In the seventh house with the natural seventh lord, or in Kritika Nakshatra and Venus in Maga Nakshatra, I asked about your relationships. The chart was for career consultation, but the seventh house caught my attention. Although this chart came to me for career consultation, the seventh house drew my attention, where I saw Ketu at 1 degree, the aspect of retrograde Saturn in Kritika, the seventh lord being in Kritika, and Venus being in Maga. Now, because unusual, dense, retrograde planets are completely impacting the seventh house, and the nakshatra of my seventh lord, which is the sun, is in a dual sign with the moon and Mercury, they have shown me this. I mentioned 9 straight. Focus on unusual combinations. But yes, some combinations attract you and draw your attention. When you start thinking that something should not be very normal, it shouldn't be like that. Socially. So next time, whenever you are judging any house lord or significator, along with that, understand the traits of whatever nakshatra falls in that house. It is referred to as its ruler. He will definitely look at how it is placed in yoga. This is a very good principle to indicate whether a child may or may not be possible, because we are seeing things at the root level, at the grass level. Thank you much.